It is puck time for Friday, December the 13th. I'm your host, Carmine Bianco of WagerTalk.com. With me is Alex B. Smith of Sports Memo, and we are going to, it's a short card tonight. So what we're going to do is we're going to appease some of the comments that we get in our chat group about a Saturday show, and we're going to cover 3 games for Saturday as well, too. So we've got 5 games that we're going to cover in today's show. Alex, how you doing?
Doing pretty good. We were talking about the off air the games last night. There was a ton of them, and a lot of crazy results. We saw, the Sharks lose 6-3 to the Rangers, and that was, we talked about that game. How I didn't think that the coaching move with DeBoer was going to, make a difference right away, and sure enough, late in that game, the Rangers ran away with it. I actually had a regulation ticket at that plus 250. But yeah, just a lot of interesting stuff that happened last night. The Hawks looking terrible defensively. They end up getting blown out by Arizona. Had a scoreless 60 minutes in Vancouver with the Carolina game, and Vancouver ends up winning that one 1-0. So just a lot of interesting stuff on a big slate.
Yeah, and speaking of that Sharks game, we did talk about that, and with the coaching change, and I thought the Rangers were still a bit of a live dog in that game. I think Dave Koken had mentioned that the number one problem with the Sharks is their goaltending, and they have 2 very bad goaltenders. And we saw it again last night. Okay, his defense didn't give him much help either, but this is still a team that needs some help between the pipes and on that blue line. They're an aging team, like he mentioned. One thing that wasn't live last night was me. I got kicked in the teeth last night in the NHL, capped off by the team I love to root against, the Toronto Maple Leafs, who absolutely fell apart in the first 2.5 minutes of the third period, allowing 3 goals before Keefe decided to finally use that one timeout that he had in his back pocket. I'm not really sure what's going on with this Toronto team. We talked offline about this, and I talked to someone about this yesterday, and they kind of remind me of the Rangers of years past, like the early 90s, I think it was, collecting stars, putting a lot of talent on the ice, but never winning anything because they just couldn't meld these egos together to play. And it's a bit of a problem, I think, in Toronto. You have a lot of high-priced stars. You also have guys who, like Nylander, who was overpaid, and the Leafs, he literally played chicken with the Leafs and Leafs management until he got a contract. And then Marner during the offseason with his dad, and who's I think is his manager, and demanding a certain amount of money towards that AAV or AVV, I'm not sure which letter combination it is. And it's literally left this Toronto team with absolutely no cap space. They need help on the blue line, but more importantly, they need help in goal behind Freddie Anderson. And I have a feeling that unless they can make some type of a move and get a backup goalie, because Hutchinson isn't their solution, they're going to ride Freddie Anderson into the ground, and it's going to kill him come playoff time. What do you think?
Yeah, I completely agree. And it's interesting, you'd think that it would be easier to find a backup goalie in the league these days. But we saw, look at what, New Jersey, for example, how they had to kind of wait around and get Louis Domingue, and then they brought him up, had to send Schneider down. So I actually thought really going back into the offseason, I thought we were going to see more goaltenders on the move. I thought we were going to see a lot of different trades. There's a lot of veteran goalies that I feel, and I said this in the shows last year about, I think they just needed a change of scenery, and so maybe we start seeing that as the deadline, approaches, about maybe 8 or 9 weeks away from that. So that's probably going to be, like I said, it's going to have to be a lot of trades, and they're going to have to, the way that they're cap strong, they're kind of like the Blackhawks in the same way, where they're going to need a third team to make some trade deals happen as well, because it's not like they have, at least Toronto has enough talent to where they can move some people around, but as far as moving contracts and then keeping space and making sure you have some depth in the AHL, so there's a lot of finagling that Toronto's got to do in order to be, like you said, get the pieces they need. And still
they've got plenty of talent. They've got, as far as I'm concerned, 3 very good lines, and they're putting together a pretty good fourth checking line. And the team philosophy since Keith has come in, they're playing better, I think, defensively. They're finally starting, it seems they're finally starting to have a team identity. The problem is what we just discussed. Overworking your starting goalie and not having a backup, maybe needing a little bit, a little help defensively. The thing with them under Babcock was they were a slow starting team, and it literally hurt them throughout the 60 minutes because they were playing catch up. Under Keith, they're starting great, but they're not. It seems like the old habits come back in that third period. It's something that they're going to need to change. It's like Ovechkin said a few months back, just before they played the Leafs, a couple of months back. I think he was interviewed before they played the Leafs and beat the Leafs that night. 4-3 or 5-3. I'm not sure what the final score was, but he said if the Leafs want to be considered a top team and do something in the playoffs, they need to change the way they play. And you can't play in the playoffs the way you play during the regular season. We see it every year. The teams with the right sort of team formation and defensive play and forwards who can back check and are fully committed for the 60 minutes and any overtime, get the team to win. The St. Louis did this to a T. We talked about it at the turn of the new year last year, where I talked about the St. Louis Blues and watch out for the Blues because they're a team that they just picked up steam. They started playing, unfortunately it's because they were in last place, but they started playing playoff hockey in January and February, but they never stopped.
Right.
Sometimes teams go on that run, and after about 15 to 20 games, they sort of putter off and slow down. So we'll have to see. But speaking of goaltending depth, the one team that does have goaltending depth, but likely are unlikely to make a trade with Toronto, are the New York Islanders. You have, I think, 3 very good goalies there. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree, and that's the thing. And that it's so important. We talked about this during the preview about how the teams. And I think all the teams that we picked to make it deep into the playoffs and win the Stanley Cup all have great 1-2 combos. Look at Dallas, Boston, and then teams that we thought would kind of, Colorado has been kind of a shock. Francouz, he's really pulled his weight, and especially the fact that Grubauer being injured, that was the one thing that worried me. I'm like, if Grubauer goes down, I thought they would have a situation kind of like what we're seeing with Toronto or Tampa, where this guy, virtually unknown, might just completely sputter out, but that's not the case. So, it's gonna be hard to find teams that are willing to trade a number 2 goalie, and if they do, they're gonna ask for a lot back in return, not just for this current year, but in the future. So, if Toronto, are they going to be a team that wants to make that gamble to win right now and risk giving up something, 2, 3, 4 years down the line? That remains to be seen.
A team that, when I was looking through the goaltending charts and depth charts for teams, and I've mentioned this on previous shows, that if Toronto could somehow find a way to make a deal, and you made a good point before we went on air, talking about a few of these teams would need to make, in order to move a goalie and maybe a blue liner, it would have to be like a 3-way type deal with involving teams and teams that have a lot of cap space that can take that contract. Minnesota, you look at Minnesota, and Dubnyk is, he's getting back there, but you have Alex Stalock, and I thought to myself, and I think I mentioned it before, if the Leafs could get a goaltender, he's a useful goaltender. He's in there, he plays. You get good performances out of him. He could be a good backup goalie for the Leafs. It's whether you could make that deal. I'm not sure if it's even viable. They also have Capo Kakkonen, if I pronounce that right. I hope so. Mm-hmm. Other than Stalock, a lot of these goalies have names that are almost impossible to pronounce sometimes. Give me something easy like Jack Campbell of the LA Kings.
Right. But yeah, no, you make a good point. I mean, now Stalock, he's got 3 years left on his deal, and he's the guy. I mean, he's a South St. Paul native. He came here and signed that deal because he wanted to play for his hometown team. So I don't know, they can move him easier. Where Dubnyk has a limited no trade clause. and Kakinen's a guy that they're looking at toward the future. So Stalock would be the goalie that they would want to move out of that. But I don't know. Like I said, 3 years, 785,000 each year left. I don't know if that's something that Toronto would want to take on. Although Stalock, I mean, he was in that organization briefly a while back. So if they want to give him a second look, but yeah, there's definitely going to be some options, and really, I mean, we can't even. I don't know if we're going to actually say that he's a trade option too, because Dubnik's been out away
Yeah.
from the team with personal issues, so they might have to roll with him and Kakinen. Now they're back in the hunt in the West, but like I said, there's a lot of things, and it's funny. We talked about how the things have changed in the league, where that American Thanksgiving point, that's not the cutoff point now anymore for whether a team's still in the race or out of it. I think now you have to say it's going to be maybe even the middle of January before we can really make that claim, and that's when teams will have to start moving things around. So there's still plenty of teams that are in position to make a run.
Yeah,
For the
no,
playoffs.
and I haven't looked at what the Leafs have to offer as far as possibly like draft picks, anything that can, again, that they can sort of play with and move around. But with the parity that we have right now in the NHL, and you look at the standings, like, again, in looking at them last night and again this morning, and you have teams who are in the East, at least outside of a playoff spot, but you know that they're going to be in a playoff spot, like a Tampa Bay, of course. It's something that we're just going to have to look at and see where the moves come. When do some of these teams that are a little higher up in the standings and playing above their heads start to suffer like a drop off? Like let's Buffalo Sabres team, they won 3 in a row, and they did beat the Nashville Predators last night, but the Sabres aren't. They're currently in 7th in the East. They're, to me, as a Sabre fan, a person who follows the team, they're essentially a 9, 10, 11 type team. I don't expect them to compete. Maybe they surprise me. Maybe they last there a lot longer, but I just don't see the depth on that team right now. Anyways, let's jump to tonight. 2 games on the card. We'll go with the first one. Dallas Stars, Vegas Golden Knights. Currently, Dallas is 161. The Vegas is plus 142. The total here is 5.5, shaded to the under. Juice is 133 on the under here, and 3 in a row for Dallas here. Vegas comes off that 4-2 loss against the Blues last night, back to back. Likely Subban in it tonight against Ben Bishop. What do you think?
Yeah, I would look at Dallas here in the spot. Remember, you got Montgomery out as the coach, and so maybe we start seeing that kind of. This is a team that's been so streaky all year too. It seems like they win 3, lose 4, win 4, lose 2. So now that they're on this win streak, it seems to kind of the work's kind of done for us in a little bit. Just kind of ride them, especially at home, where they've been 12-4-1 so far at home this year. We know how Vegas, I would talk about all the time, how they just don't have the same energy away from T-Mobile Arena. So I would look at taking Dallas in regulation minus $1.05 or
All
minus
right.
$1.10.
Yeah, when you look at these lines, and you look at some of the past score lines between these 2 teams, there's goals, but there's not a ton of goals. 4-2, 2-1, 4-1. So the number being lined at 5.5, shaded to the under, I think is the right spot here. You could take the approach that, okay, well, it's Subban in net, so they might see goals, but Subban has actually played very well during that 7 or 8 day span where Fleury was with his family in Montreal for his dad's passing away and memorial funeral. He played extremely well on that road trip. So 5.5 seems like the right number. When you're looking at, and this is something I don't usually discuss during the shows, but like looking at the numbers and sort of like implied probability. You look at a line like Dallas minus 161. What does that mean? It means that the bookmakers essentially have that number at 61.7% of the time. The Dallas Stars are going to win the game. Vegas at plus 142 is 41.3% of the time, probability wise. Now those add up to like 103%. Obviously, that 3% takes into consideration the sportsbook's vig on the games. The total is 57.1% of the time, with the number lined where it is right now at 5.5. That under is going to hit. So every once in a while, I'm going to throw out an implied probability, but I wanted to explain it to our viewers so they understand where I'm coming from, because this next game has a higher probability number on it, and it's the Colorado Avalanche, who are just playing fantastic right now against the New Jersey Devils, who are playing anything but fantastic right now. The current line is Colorado minus 250. The Devils are plus 210, and the total is 6.5 shaded to the under at minus 120. Your thoughts, my good friend?
I mean, this just seems like it just screams Colorado's going to win this game. It's one of those games where they feel like they could pick their score, and they've been off the last 3 days, which is huge for them because they've we talk about the injuries that they've had. Finally, they have a couple of days off and get some guys some rest, and hopefully get back and get to have a full lineup. Maybe Kel McCarr could be back by this weekend, or maybe a little bit after that. Jonas Dorskoy could be back this weekend as well. So he said, as well as this Colorado team was playing without some of these key guys. I mean, once they get everybody back, and it might take a couple of games for everything to kind of, form back together as far as the lines are concerned, get those guys, especially the defensive pairings and so forth. But once they do, I mean, look out. They're probably going to be playing just like they did at the beginning of the year when everything was all systems go for this Avalanche team. The Devils have just been absolutely struggling. The coaching change has done pretty much nothing. There's nothing of value with this line, be it regulation or the pure money line. I would look at maybe team total over 3.5. Even that's got a bit of a high juice at $1.30. But Colorado, like I said, they can name their score. If they want to take it easy and win 2-0, they can. If they want to go guns blazing and win 7-0.
Yeah, I have to believe that you have to take the approach in this game that if you have a team like New Jersey coming into town and statistically and quality wise in your lineup is much better top to bottom. They're a team that's struggling, obviously having lost 6 in a row. You need to step on their throats early, for lack of a better term. Don't keep a team hanging around. I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about last night's game when we went through the card, and I said, Winnipeg, although on the road, not like tonight's game where Colorado's at home, but Winnipeg on the road in Detroit. They had just played a couple nights previously, and Winnipeg beat them 5-1. That I had to pass on that game, even on the puck line, because at some point, and I'm not saying that was going to happen last night, at some point, Detroit had lost 12 in a row. They're going to get a win. And the funny thing is that it was the same thought process I had probably, I think it was last month, where Detroit had lost 9 or 10 in a row. And they came home and from a road trip. I'm not sure who they played, but they beat them. And it was another good team. I'm not sure if it was the Bruins or if it was the Penguins.
I think it was, yeah.
And it's one of those weird things. But sometimes when it looks too easy, it's when you want to stay away from it. Although I don't think the Avalanche are going to lose tonight. I can't take the game only because if I was looking at the puck line right now is -1.5, -105 is what I'm seeing. And I'm a big proponent of saying, if that's the right word for this, that you do not take negative juice on a puck line. You should always be getting plus money on a puck line. So if that was -1.5 plus 105, I would probably take it. But the fact that you're giving up a goal and a half and you have to lay juice, it's a pass for me there as far as that goes.
Yeah, no, I completely agree, and that's the thing. And you're seeing that a lot now, where these huge favorites, they'll go from where it would be maybe plus 120 to all of a sudden even money or laying a price. So, like I said, yeah, there's just no value in it. And like I said, it's a short card. This is definitely a night. Like I said, I don't have anything officially in pocket yet. I probably won't. I probably just wait till tomorrow's bigger slate. But this is definitely, like I said, I want to watch the Colorado in the next couple of games though. To see how they gel back together with guys, like I said, coming off of the injury reserve, coming back into the lineup, and see if they can get that same momentum.
All right.
Early in the season.
Okay, so excuse me, we've covered the 2 games for tomorrow. Let's go into 3 games for Saturday since we have such a short card. tonight, which was obviously on the heels of 12 of them last night. We're going to look at the Leafs and the Edmonton Oilers. Goalies haven't been named yet, but it's looking as if it'll be Smith for Edmonton and Anderson for Toronto. Again, the Leafs riding Anderson, I believe. I think we discussed in looking at the Leafs schedule, there are some spots before the year is up where they can get a backup goalie in. They do have some back-to-backs, so I think that would probably be the best time. My look at, excuse me, my look-ahead lines for this, I usually, and I keep using that phrase, so you guys will have to kill me in the chat again. The look-ahead lines for this game, I usually put together some lines, and I have the Leafs at -130, the Oilers at +105 to 107, and the total at 6.5. What are your thoughts? And we're going to go based on the numbers that I'm giving you.
Yeah, I mean 6.5 would make total sense. It's funny that we haven't seen a 7. I think we would maybe saw 1-7 early in the year, but this could be a spot where 7 would make sense. Honestly, I wouldn't be shocked at it. The way that Edmonton's defense played last night, and that 6-5 loss against Minnesota, they made Minnesota look like one of the better offensive teams in the league. And that's with them missing a couple of guys as well. So now the 3-game losing streak. Toronto's won the last 6 meetings against Edmonton, and they look to bounce back after that 4-2 loss against Calgary last night. That was a frustrating game, and you wonder, like I said, if overs might be a thing to play with Toronto because they keep riding Anderson into the ground, and even if it's not Anderson, then you've got Hutchinson, who it's proven he's not an NHL caliber goalie at this point in his career right now. So the only thing I would be looking at there would be Edmonton, and Toronto would be over.
Okay, I have to agree with you there, and yeah, it's true. The thing is with Hutchinson, it's a confidence thing, and it's not so much that he didn't have the confidence. He probably does. He probably believes he's a very good goalie. They didn't put him in a position or didn't play to get him wins that gives you that confidence moving forward. So you get to a point where, all right, I'm starting tonight. It's only because I'm playing the second of the back-to-back. Okay, let's see what we can do. I'm not saying that that's the mentality, but it sometimes seems that that's what it could be. You need to support your goalies. In years past, I would love taking the unders in games where the backup goalie was, because my thought process at the time, and it would work, was the team always played better defensively in front of their backup goalie, knowing they needed to help them. Nowadays, you take more chances when your starter's in there because he can make saves. Speaking of saves, we've seen some fantastic saves over the last few weeks. I think there was one in the Calgary game last night. We saw Fleury with one, obviously against the Leafs. These sort of save of the year type plays that we keep seeing. So we'll see what comes for that. This next game is an interesting one because my look ahead number makes you want to say this can't be right, but I believe it is. The Preds and the Stars. Preds are at home. Preds -161. The Stars +132. For a Stars team that's playing very well, and the total is 5.5.
I mean, I would be looking at that Stars all day if I'm getting that big of a plus price. This Nashville team has just been wildly inconsistent. They lost 4-3 in their last game against Buffalo after coming off of 2 wins. And it's the thing; they don't. It's funny. We talked about it yesterday. Dave was talking about it with another team where talking about with Tampa Bay, where they don't control the pace and tempo of the games anymore. They let their opponents dictate the pace, and I think that's what Nashville's kind of doing as well. And ironically enough, Nashville and Tampa, both fast teams with a lot of offense. We saw that from Nashville early in the year, where they were cashing every game, seemed to be going over the total. They were getting 4 and 5 goals. They're letting in 3 or 4 goals, and now it seems like I said they're letting the other team carry the pace. If you do that with Dallas, they're going to just slow you down to death. Take quality shots, clog up the neutral zone, they hit a lot, and that's the things with Nashville. They've got to, especially at home. I've had to downgrade their home ice because that home ice was one of the highest ones next to Vegas in my book, where that crowd would get really loud and be all over the goalie, be all over the opposing team. Not so much the case now, especially because Nashville, they don't take the initiative early in games. So Dallas at a plus race, even though it's the second night of back-to-backs. But once again, as I talk about, they have a good goalie, Anton Khudobin, a guy who's one of the best backups in the league, in my opinion. So I would look at Dallas.
Yeah, and he
at a
should
plus
be the
price
starter. It
at the
should be
moment.
Rene and Khudobin because Bishop gets the start tonight. He hasn't played since, I believe, if I'm looking at this correctly, I think December the 3rd was his last start. He lost on the road in Winnipeg 5-1. So, he's had some time off, obviously, 10 days. It'll be 11 days since his last start. But yeah, I think Nashville's a much better team at home than they are, obviously, on the road. I'll wait until tomorrow to see how close I am on that line, but I'm probably looking at the under there because along the same lines, I just think that the Stars play very well defensively, and they support their goalies very well. The Preds have some problems scoring goals. They didn't last night, but they still didn't get the win against the Sabres. So we'll see how they bounce back on Saturday. Final game, which is I think the marquee game of the night. As far as I'm concerned, the Washington Capitals and Tampa Bay Lightning in Tampa. I have Tampa minus 137, Washington plus 112 with a total of 6.5. And I think goalie-wise, we're looking at Vasilevsky and Holtby.
Yeah, I mean, there's no way I'm going to be going in front of Washington right now. They were able to get right back under the horse. We talked about how it was a complete sandwich spot for them against Columbus, where they, had the win streak, came back home off that West Coast trip, lost to Columbus because they were looking ahead to Boston, and sure enough, they come right back, get the 3-2 win against Boston. So now they play another top tier, even though they haven't played like it, but they still, in the minds of the rest of the Eastern Conference, Tampa Bay is still a top tier team. You can't overlook them or sleep on this team, and they've been lights out on the road. 9 of the last 10 games they've won Washington. They've also won 4 of the last 6 meetings against Tampa Bay, so it'll be captured.
Yeah, and this series, I would think, in all honesty, if we saw a 7, it's going to happen in a game like this. And I think they played back on the 29th of November. And I believe in the morning of the game that the line was at 7, although the under was juiced. And essentially when you see the 7 and you see about minus 125 on the under, it eventually hits 6.5. But the books with their overnight lines don't want to get hit on totals. So they'll shade them a half goal at times to where they want you to bet them. That game ended up 4-3. Overtime for the Caps at home. 6.5 here. I'm likely going to take the over in this game. You look at some of the scores from last year: 6-3, 5-4, 6-3 again. There's been goals when these teams meet. It's always that first period. Essentially, it sets the tone for the game. You get a couple early ones. Especially if both teams score, I think it sets the tone for the game. So I'll look to. There's no numbers on that just yet, but I'm going to look to see what the first period total is when it comes out. I'm going to guess it's likely going to be 2 plus 110, something along those lines. I don't think you're going to see a 1.5.
Probably. No, yeah, I would guess it would be a 2. If you do see a 1.5, it'll be juiced up, 180, 185. And it's interesting. We talk about goalies being run into the ground. I think Tampa Bay's got a real problem running Andre Vasilevsky into the ground. We saw how he got overworked last year, and that was with having Louis Domingue having a lights out year as a backup. And cashing in a lot of those second night of back-to-back spots. But Curtis McElhinney has not been the same caliber of a backup as Domingue was last year. So Vasilevsky's been getting a ton of starts. And you wonder if they're a team that's going to have to make some kind of a move or something, because you don't want him getting run into the ground. You got a few weeks even before the All-Star break, never mind the second half of the season. So this is definitely going to be problematic moving forward for Tampa. They got to give this guy some rest, because you don't want him getting burnt out at the end of the season or in the playoffs.
Yeah, and listen, I am not an NHL coach. I am not a minor league coach. I am a Monday morning quarterback at best. But I have to believe with teams like Tampa, teams like Toronto, who are expected to do a little better and don't have the best of backup goalies, that the coaching staff look at games and they're like, we need 2 points. We need to put our starter in net. We need Anderson in net. We need Vasilevsky in net. And it's to the detriment of the team long term. They may be looking at least could be looking at the lineup and saying, all right, we have 2 spots before the year is up where we can, against Detroit and against New Jersey, where we can fit in our backup goalie. So let's just start Anderson and he'll have 4 or 5 days over the break to get it back. It's not that easy. It's a toll on your body in an 82 game season. It's essentially the same as when someone says, I'm going to sleep in tomorrow because I didn't sleep the other night and I need to catch up on my sleep. No, you can't catch up on your sleep. Once you've missed it, it's gone.
Right, yep.
You're starting anew. So it's one of those things where I always laugh when someone says, I got to catch up on my sleep. No, it's not like you're watching Netflix and you're going to try and watch 2 or 3 episodes because you missed last week's episode. That's not the way it works. So we'll see what the Leafs do. Time will tell. If they lose against Edmonton, if this road trip does not go as well as it's supposed to go, and they come home and they're not winning games, getting the results they expected from Keefe. He's a good coach. I like him, but he has got to find a way of fixing and it doesn't happen overnight, fixing the problems within that club. To play a complete 60 minutes. They have not done it. They have not played a complete 60 minutes, as far as I'm concerned, against a good team or franchise, like a Boston, like a Tampa Bay, obviously Calgary last night.
Right.
Never count the Flames out. Washington. These are the teams that they're going to have to beat in order to win a cup or make a deep run in the playoffs.
Yeah, I
all right,
agree.
listen, that's 5 games. We've covered 2 for today, 3 for tomorrow. Comment on the videos. I think I kept my ums and ahs to under 50. I've got a counter in the back here. It looks like 36 times I did that. So I will improve on that next week. But it is you on Monday and Tuesday hosting the show. I believe on Tuesday you're going to do a look ahead for Wednesday because Wednesday is a short card. So
right, yeah. There's 3 games on Wednesday, and I'll be traveling, so I won't be available that day. So we'll have Tuesday and Wednesday, so that'll be a longer show. I don't know how many games are on Tuesday's card, but usually Tuesdays are pretty long, so that'll be an extended show.
All right, cool. And so there'll be no show on Wednesday. The Tuesday show will cover it. We may very well, unfortunately, guys out there, we may have to pass on Thursday because I will be traveling back from Punta Cana. And if Alex isn't completely at his destination of travel as well too, then we may not have a show. It's going to be up to you, Alex, on whether you'll be able to host or not.
Yeah, chances are I won't be available Thursday, and I'll try to make sure that
so I'm back Thursday night, so I will host on Friday. So I'll get in touch with you, and we'll have a show on Friday. And to make it up to the guys, we will also look ahead to Saturday, next Friday as well too. Yeah. Listen, man, safe travels. Have a good weekend, and best of luck to you with your hockey plays tonight and tomorrow and Sunday.
Sounds good. Yeah, safe travels to you, and have